Before we go into it, I'd like to point something out. I asked Mr. Stahl, when the weather's nice, to get an estimate on what it would take to fix the roof on that building. We as a community need to decide, is that going to be a viable building that will fulfill some community needs? I know that a couple Fridays ago when we had the festival, that place was full of kids getting down there skating. I know it gets used by the preschool, it's used by the alternate school. And I understand that the Hanley Center does not have the financial wherewithal to fix that roof. But I think we as a community have to debate whether we're going to fix that roof and keep that as a center where the children of Lee can use. But that is another discussion for another day. Right now we have a memorandum of understanding between the City of Lee and the Northern Hills Family Recreation Center to manage the Armory building. Commissioner Everett and I talked it over, and we hope that the expenses will not exceed between $30,000 and $35,000. I think that's a reasonable figure. We are picking up the insurance because we save a considerable amount of money by paying that insurance through the city. I know that this memorandum of understanding doesn't make everybody happy, but the fact of the matter is, we do have an obligation and a duty as a city to help provide some recreation for our children. You know that I was on record, and I was campaigning, that I thought that the way the Hanley Center was being run, that it was not being good use of the taxpayers' dollar. But at the same time I was saying that, you also know I said that I was in favor of keeping and helping to fund the Armory, to keep those activities in place. So be that as it may, do we have may I have a motion and a second to adopt this memorandum of understanding for the sake of discussion?
Also moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the memorandum of understanding. As I said before, we've spoken, Commissioner Everett and I, we looked over between $30,000 and $35,000. I also want to point out there will be no bills paid, not one bill that will be paid without the approval of the City Commission. Everybody understands that, I hope. All the bills have to come across this desk and be approved. There will be nothing spent ahead of time. So, do we have any discussion?
When the voters of Lee went to the polls last November to vote whether or not to continue funding of the Hanley Recreation Center, I interpreted that vote to mean it was the voters' intention for their elected representatives to spend tax dollars more wisely. The referendum that the citizens voted on and passed provided a provision whereby the City Commission could provide funding to the Armory at their discretion. In my opinion, that never meant an open-ended written agreement to assume total financial responsibility for the Armory. For a municipality to enter into an agreement which sets no known fixed financial parameters without any adequate information as to what costs have been in the past or may be in the future, in my opinion, is irresponsible. An agreement such as this would put us right back to where we were before the referendum, but now with a different facility. At least in the past, when the citizens' tax dollars were allocated, there was a finite dollar amount attached. Why would the citizens not assume all financial responsibility for the Free Store, the Lord's Cupboard, the Mining Museum, the Opera House, or for that matter, any other non-profit entity that would come before the Commission? We as commissioners are elected and sworn to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. This memorandum of understanding, assuming all financial responsibility for a single nonprofit entity, is a poor precedence to set at best, and for these reasons, I will be voting no on behalf of the citizens whose tax dollars I am duly bound to spend prudently and wisely.
We are not assuming all the expenses. They're assuming the programming expenses. They are assuming the cleaning expenses. Right? They are assuming the snow plowing. They're making sure the sidewalk and the entrances are clean. I will go back to what I said. I believe that we have a responsibility to provide a place for our children. And as you know, it says here, meeting to resolve issues and or conflicts will be held as needed. Results of these meetings will be reported as necessary to the lead city commission. These meetings will be tasked with discussing any expenditure that does not meet the obligations of the role and responsibility sections. I will go on. In terms of the agreement, this memorandum of understanding is in effect for 1 year after approval and may be renewed annually by a vote of the lead city commission by action of the board of directors of the Northern Hills Family Recreation Center. Any terms of this memorandum of understanding may be modified, changed, and or eliminated by a vote of the lead city commission and by action of the board of directors of the Northern Hills Family Recreation Center. Either party may terminate their obligations under this agreement with a 30-day notice to the other party. It would behoove both parties to be frugal in their spending, be watchful of the tax dollars, and to work and make sure that this agreement works to the benefit of all the taxpayers in the city. Is there any further discussion? Mr.
Thank you,
Knapp?
Mayor. I have a couple questions. Item number 3, the city will put all employee labor costs. Are the Northern Hills Rec Center employees, are they city employees, or are they employees of the rec center?
Employees of the rec center.
Okay, then why is the city being requested to pay their labor costs?
We're paying the labor cost at the Armory.
Yes,
Maintenance, any maintenance cost.
okay. Number
Does that
6.
answer your question?
It does. Number 6, pay for and or perform snow removal in the parking areas of the Armory. Does that mean in their back
In
parking
the
lot?
back, in the back. The city is gonna move the snow out of there. And in some cases, we might have to have a private contractor come in. But Mr. Bunch has assured me he doesn't think that's gonna happen very often, if it does at all. Mrs. Burns.
Thank you, Jim. You said that you were looking at a roof estimate.
Yes.
Do you have any figure on that?
No, we're,
Okay, okay,
it's tough to get an estimate with snow on the roof.
okay. You made a remark that, it's our duty, city's duty,
I believe it's.
to
our
provide recreation. Since when?
I believe it is our duty and responsibility as a city and as taxpayers to provide recreational opportunities for our children. We've all, when I was a child, there were taxpayers paying so that I would have recreational opportunities when I was living in Rapid City. I know I've heard the argument, why should I be paying school taxes? I don't have any children in school. Well, I don't, and I am paying school taxes. But believe me, somebody was paying school taxes for my 3 children to go to school.
Okay, well, I went to the Catholic school, okay? And my folks paid taxes. It would have been very easy for them to send us to the public school. And instead of paying the tuition that they did for us at the Catholic school. So in the summer, because we didn't take swimming, like the public school kids did, we had to pay extra for that, even though my folks paid city taxes, okay? So that's why I want to know, since when is it the duty of the city, the taxpayers, to pay for recreation. Because this goes back to, like quite a while ago. It was all like, I mean, you know how old I am, so, okay. So I just want to know, and I'd like that clarified, because that wasn't the way it was when I was going to school. Okay? You said about that you campaigned on that. I hate to say this, Jerry, but campaign promises are broken by a lot of people.
I understand that, but
Okay.
I try not to break it.
Okay, I'm glad you admitted that, you made that campaign promise when you ran to provide for some of this. But, when you go back and you look at this, I guess, on number 6, where it says to pay for, the snow removal in the parking areas of the Armory. Now, I want to know one thing. Where is that going to put me as a senior citizen, as a taxpayer of the city of Lee, on the priority list? Because you're going to look at, we have all these little kids that are being dropped off for daycare, so we've got to get that all cleaned out. So that's going to lower the priority for some of us other people who pay taxes. I want you to think about that one really long and hard. And that, to me, I go along with what Denise said. This is not what we voted on. And I'm saying as a taxpayer in the city of Lee, and we have been since even when we rented, we paid through our rent for taxes. So since 1974, we've been taxpayers in this city. This is not boding well with me at all. Because, you're looking at a nonprofit. Hey, I'm nonprofit too. Thank you.
Mr. Below.
I would just like to help you out in addressing the issue of recreation and parks. I served on the committee in the city where I came from over 12 years on parks and recreation. There's no mandate that makes it mandatory for cities to have parks and recreation. It's a perk.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to have perk, if you want kids running in the street, no place to play, playing in your yard and not the yard they came from, then you don't build parks. The reason parks are built and recreation is created, is to create a safe environment for the children of the city. Trails and sidewalks and parks give them the environment they need to be safe because they do not have the mental capacity as an adult. They need strict guidance in areas where to play and how to play. And that's why a city provides recreation and parks. It's not something we like to pay for because we don't have any kids. It's part of our obligation as living together in the citizens of a city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Can I just make a comment to that? If we're providing all of this for these kids, why do we have vandalism down in our city park? That again is being come back out of my pocket. I mean, we're providing that, and we
Everybody's
have been.
pocket, not just yours.
I know, but you know what I'm saying. So if we're providing all of this, then why do we have the vandalism that we do around town? You know?
We have vandalism because no matter where you go, there's always 10%.
That's right.
They don't know how to function properly in society. Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple of questions. Who actually owns the Armory building?
The Hanley Center.
Okay, that leads me to my second question. I guess I've got more than a couple. If the Hanley Center owns the building, and the roof is in bad shape, I understand, and probably the boiler, and a few other issues, why was not the Hanley Center board doing something about this? Putting some money aside because they didn't have the full funds to do it, I understand, but putting some money aside from what they were getting fix these things down the road. As a homeowner, when my roof leaks, I don't come to the city and say, hey, my roof is leaking, are you gonna fix it for me? You paid for it, and thank you very much. No, sir. I pay for it myself. The handling center should be doing the same thing. My heater goes out, my water heater goes out. I don't ask the city to pay for it. I ask myself. I can't afford a brand new roof, but maybe I better look at borrowing some money from Mr. Black up here at the bank, getting a roof put on, making payments. My last comment is, the lovely young lady said that she's looking into fundraising for opportunities for the children. What about fundraising for repairs of the building that you own and not requesting the city to pay for?
Commissioner Burns.
Thank you, Mayor Ava. I have a couple of questions here, so, how many employees do you actually have at the Armory that are part of this agreement?
One maintenance man.
And he's split between the handling center and the Armory?
Yes.
Okay, and when it comes to the responsibilities of the center, sidewalk shoveling, happening to be a neighbor of the Armory and having shoveled this weekend because my husband was night shift, I'm not so sure I actually saw the sidewalk shoveled this weekend. Information to provide the commission each month to show that it's actually a good agreement to be in, and that good things are happening at the Armory, and that the commitment that they're making with tax dollars is a sound commitment. That's what I'm saying.
I'm sure that the handling center will be able to provide a report on the usage of the Armory.
Thank you.
We have a question here. Upon submittal of number 7, upon submittal of a monthly invoice from the center, the city will reimburse the center for all approved expenses incurred in the operation of the Armory. Okay, I think in the spirit of transparency and goodwill, that the bills would be submitted before they're paid. There shouldn't be any problem because most bills are not due until 30 days upon receipt. We meet twice a month. So there should not be any problem with approving the bills and then having them paid. Do you see any problem, Commissioner?
Well, I don't understand. If we don't decide to pay a bill, then the handling center's already paid it. It's a good point. And I'm not understanding the reason for that. I mean, we're gonna pay the bills, we're gonna submit the ones we believe are outlined in the contract, and you'll have the ability to say, no, that's not, or then send it back. So we've already paid the bill.
Majority of the bills, we don't have the utilities.
Yeah.
Yes. We're gonna have the maintenance. Yes.
You have to have some idea of what these bills, the expenses have been, correct, or not? I mean, there has to be some accountability so that, if this does go through, that the taxpayers know what exactly we're looking at. Not like we're looking at a white elephant again. And that, there has to be something out there. I could tell you right now roughly what my electric bill runs for the whole year, my gas bill, and my insurance and everything.
We submitted a budget and it was itemized, and that's how we came up with the $30,000 to $35,000 that the mayor indicated at the first of the meeting.
So, mean, I just think that we have to be looking at reasonable amounts. I know that you said that the 30 to 35,000, so that's gonna be the ultimate cap for 1 year of this agreement? Or is that per month, or what is
That's the
that?
expected cap for the year.
For a whole year? Okay, then my next question is if you raise money, like South skating, and that, is that all free and clear?
The net for the skating is about 3,000.
Okay,
They're gonna be buying new skates.
okay. You know, it just seems really strange, you know, our son was in band and everything, and we had to pay for his instrument, you know, the uniforms to be cleaned and everything else, like I said. I don't understand when the city of Lee paid for everybody in the city. for
Not
their
paying
recreation.
for everybody.
Well, that we provide recreation. Because, yeah, you're right, we didn't always pay for it, because I'm proof of that from when I went to.
Because we had Daddy Homestead doing recreation.
Hey, that was when I was growing up,
And they-
Jerry, but we still had to pay at the Homestay Rec Center for our swimming lessons and those sort of things. Even though my dad paid taxes.
Well, the kids paid for.
And my dad worked for Homestay too. But since we went to a private school, we had to pay to take swimming lessons. And that was at the pool. And that's one of my pet peeves about the Y when they, that's why I go to Deadwood, because there is no pool. And just for the record, we have people that come from Spearfish that use the Deadwood Recreation Center. I think that, you know, if we're talking about recreation and that, you know, we have a wonderful facility in Deadwood. It's time that the two towns got together on some of this stuff. But to me, we're looking at a white elephant, I think.
Good morning, Ms. White. I just want to, for the sake of some clarity here, I'm someone who believes in complete transparency. I run the child care center down in Deadwood. We've only been open for 3 years and we're already turning a profit now with the help of fundraising and grants and things like that. But like Jerry said, it is a commitment of the community. You know, Deadwood's rec facility is so nice because the community of Deadwood decided to commit $380,000 of taxpayer dollars to the Deadwood Recreation Center. And right now, the city of Lee pays nothing for recreation. And that we don't want to compete with Deadwood. We want to create something new and something viable for this town that brings people into this town, brings people that want to live here and want to keep their kids here. That's why we're bringing after-school programming. The Boys and Girls Club of America have several nationwide sites, and having them on alone will help the Hanley and the Armory. And from the very beginning, and again, this is my understanding when I went in to vote, you know, it said, Hanley Rec Center will not receive funding at this address, but it did not include the Armory, and so that was always left on the table ever since the vote, from my understanding. And it's not like, you know, it's just the utilities that are being paid. We pay thousands and thousands of dollars on top of everything. We would be running in the hole. We will be running in the hole if we don't do anything. That's just the truth. You know, the skate night and the alt club and everything like that pays for us to house 20 preschoolers. And I can say from my being an executive director at the child care center down here, right now between my two sites, I have 120 kids I can take. We're full. We don't have room for kids like this. You know, these parents are getting a low wage because that's what they can afford, and it keeps their kids off the street, or, you know, marble a boyfriend, you know? I mean, it's somewhere safe and educational for them to be. And if we didn't have that, you know, I just worry about where we would go. And not only on that, but when I went to skate night the other night, I saw several of my kids from my program who are generally at-risk kids who get in trouble a lot. They've been kicked out of a lot of other places. And on a Friday night, they chose to go to skate night rather than be out on the streets getting into trouble. And to me, I mean, to have that available for my son and to know that something is out there, the community is actually putting some effort into providing something for the children who are going to be the next leaders of this community, is something to be said about that. And this is definitely, it's very gracious on the city's part to even have come up with this understanding, so I appreciate that.
Before we go, I'm gonna answer your question. We have the preschool. Preschool brings in 10.5. They pay out 18,000 for salaries to run that, so that's a $7,500 deficit right there. So if you took the alternate school, which brings in 5,400, and you took the skating, which nets 3,000, you've got 8,400 there. So you got $900. They got $900 sloshing around in the pocket. All right. I understand that this memorandum of understanding is not a perfect piece of legalese. But I'll tell you what, I think it would be a waste of the taxpayers' money to spend $2,000-3,000 to have a lawyer get everything, so we got every I dotted and every T crossed. I will say this again. First off, we have to have a little bit of faith. Secondly, there's going to be transparency and there's going to be accountability. And believe me, do you think the Hanley Center is going to let me sit here with the gavel and rail on them if there's things aren't going right? I don't think so, folks. Believe me, we got our finance officer, we got our finance commissioner here that's going to be going through things with a fine-tooth comb. And I am too. I know that I was elected to watch out for the taxpayers' dollar. But by the same token, I don't think I was elected to strike everything from recreation. Ms. Davis.
Gordon Davis. I personally have no problem with my taxpayers will support programs at the Armory any more than I have a problem with education as the future of the community. What I have a concern about is we still don't have the big picture as far as the cost to fix up the buildings. The roof is just one aspect. And without that information, we can't make educated decisions about how we're going to go forward with education, recreation. So I was wondering if there's going to be any cooperative effort with the city and the board to try and get some figures on what is needed to fix up the Armory versus the Hanley Center, so we can move forward with some good information.
Would you mind if I answered that?
Yes.
We actually already have a preliminary quotes. We have 3 different phases we're looking at as far as fixing up the buildings. Now again, the Hanley is our primary focus because that is the more structurally sound building and more of the opportunity that Boys and Girls Club will have to flourish. So that those 3 phases are just for the Hanley Center. And that's what our capital campaign is for. We'll be raising monies to fix up the Hanley Center. Now the Armory, we want to keep it sustainable and maintain it for the programming that is in there, but that's where this agreement comes in with the city. We have a business plan in hand and those kind of things. We were just waiting for the contract to go through the Boys and Girls Club. So all of those things were thought out, and we are definitely getting our ducks in a row, or have them in a row.
Are you ever going to publish that on your website?
This is brand new information that we so yes, that will be there.
The contract technically isn't even signed yet, and we want to make sure that was in there so our figures could be accurate without publishing information, and have to be confusing. We want to just make sure it's correct and accurate before we put it out there to the public.
Mr. Flynn.
Before the vote, I believe one of our board members, Darla, she ascertained figures from Ainsworth and Benning on fixing the Armory. And I think we could get those figures in writing from the person that looked at the Armory.
I think I said 1.3, but I believe that was just a flyby estimate.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
Ms. Burns.
Well, you said that the funding, and we know that from the vote, that it wasn't cut to the Armory. So, that money is there. Give them that money that was budgeted, and we tabled this. To me, you know, memorandum of understanding, and that, let them use that money, because we didn't include the Armory building in there. And you know, come up with that business plan, and you say that you have that. Have you taken that business plan to a bank?
We're going to.
Yeah, because we don't have a contract
See,
signed.
so I say we table this again, and that, until you've got more information on that.
Yes, Pastor.
First off, for Commissioner Burns, I was there at 5:15 this morning, pushing snow off the sidewalks to go, people can get through there. I saw that the rest of it had been done by somebody else, so I'll be there about 5 o'clock in the morning to take care of that.
Good.
Thanks. I'll try not to use the snow blower with you all.
You can use the snow blower, it's just important that
All right, we understand.
we are.
The other thing is, we need to put some perspective here. That is 4 different votes. Now, let's go back to the vote. If it's 4 votes, out of 20% of the people who are the taxpayers, we keep talking about taxpayers. Well, the truth of the matter is, most of the taxpayers didn't care if the Hanley Center kept getting the money without accountability that people raised, or it didn't. Did they? Most of them, they didn't go and vote. It was very easy for one side to find 4 people to vote this way, and the other side to find 2 the other way. What you've got is you have a city that has some apathy, some lethargy, but you also have a city that's fairly even divided, that doesn't really make sense, the people to be divided this hard one way or the other on this memorandum, which I commend the mayor for putting forward. I need to go back. It could be just as easy for somebody to step forward with a petition and put it on for people to vote to fully fund the Hanley Center next election cycle, and there we go again. So, and it could easily flip-flop, 1 year this way, 1 year that way. That could be the worst thing that this community would do, is keep doing vote this way, vote that way. It doesn't show a community that has any sense of direction. And so when people are talking about taxpayers, I think really, to be honest, we need to say me, maybe my friends, and some of us, but the facts show that the majority of taxpayers didn't care whether the Hanley Center got all of this money or not, because they didn't get out to vote. Now the vote went the way it did, with the petition the way it was. And so I'll go back to what I said back then. I think I want to commend the mayor, because I think he stepped up and putting this together. Not necessarily what you would like it to be or whatever, but it is workable, and so I think we just need to have that perspective.
Mr. Valenti.
You know, we kind of put the cart in front of the horse here. We're trying to decide whether to help the Hanley Center and help them paying their bills, improving their bills. We're a long ways from ever worrying about if it needs a roof or not. If we fund all of this, the sidewalks aren't going to get shoveled, the building's going to get vandalized, there's going to be no recreation in the city, whether it's for the kids or for the adults. I would suggest that we step back to where we started out with, is the original agreement, and finalize that. And as we finalize that, if we approve it, to start moving forward on a CIP maybe, some other recreation grants and things that would make that a little bit more functionable facility. You gotta remember, these are volunteers that are mainly doing this job, and they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart, and I think the city